You need to hear this if you're a Canadian worker or business owner, because what's happening in Hamilton, Ontario, could change everything. Welcome back to Universal Insight. Please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon for more updates. In Hamilton, Ontario, the steel district is eerily quiet. Trucks sit idle, factories are silent, and workers gather in coffee shops anxious about their future. The clang of metal that once defined the city has been replaced by uncertainty as a new trade war erupts between Canada and the United States. President Trump's latest tariffs, up to 50% on steel, aluminum, and auto parts, have hit Canadian industry hard, making cross-border trade nearly impossible overnight. The impact is immediate layoffs, canceled shifts, and families facing financial crisis. These tariffs, justified as national security measures, are seen here as a betrayal by a trusted ally. The ripple effects threaten not just Canadian jobs, but also American manufacturers who rely on Canadian materials. The once seamless partnership between the two countries is now under immense strain. For many, the silence in Hamilton steel yards is a stark symbol of a friendship pushed to its breaking point. The human cost is real. Families, businesses, and entire communities are caught in the crossfire of a political battle they never chose. The question now, can this economic rift be healed, or is it the start of a new era of division? President Trump's tariffs are more than economic policy. They're leveraged to force Canada and Mexico to address U.S. concerns on drugs and migration. A sweeping 25% tariff on all Canadian and Mexican imports, with even higher rates on steel and aluminum, marks an unprecedented escalation. The administration frames this as America first, aiming to revive U.S. manufacturing and jobs, even if it means breaking trade agreements. Critics warn that these tariffs will backfire, raising costs for American consumers and businesses. Integrated supply chains mean a car assembled in Detroit could cross the border multiple times, each crossing now taxed, driving up prices. The Peterson Institute estimates these tariffs could cost the average American household over $2,600 a year. The U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement is at risk, as the administration hints at renegotiation if demands aren't met. This power-based approach challenges decades of rules-based trade, replacing cooperation with confrontation. The result: economic pain on both sides of the border, and a partnership built over generations now in jeopardy. The world is watching to see if this new fortress mentality will reshape North American trade for good. In Ottawa, Prime Minister Mark Carney refuses to back down. He and Deputy PM Chrystia Freeland engage directly with the White House, seeking de-escalation but preparing for a long fight. Canada retaliates with targeted tariffs on U.S. goods, hitting politically sensitive districts to maximize impact. At the same time, Carney selectively eases some tariffs on American consumer products, signaling openness to negotiation and offering relief to Canadians. This dual strategy, pressure and diplomacy, aims to protect Canadian interests while keeping dialogue alive. Beyond North America, Canada builds alliances with Europe and Asia, rallying nations facing similar U.S. trade pressure. The goal: isolate the U.S. on the world stage and defend the global trading system. Canada's fight is no longer just bilateral, it's about upholding international economic stability. Carney's approach is risky but calculated, balancing retaliation with a path to reconciliation. The hope is that international and domestic pressure will force Washington to reconsider. Canada is determined not to be bullied, but also not to close the door on peace. With U.S. trade ties in jeopardy, Prime Minister Carney unveils a bold plan to reshape Canada's economy. The strategy: massive investment in infrastructure, energy, and mining to reduce dependence on the U.S. and open new markets. Projects include expanding LNG exports to Asia, developing new copper mines, building a nuclear reactor, and a new container port for global trade. This is a historic pivot. Canada is declaring economic sovereignty and betting on its own resources and innovation. The plan faces challenges: environmental opposition, indigenous land rights, and the sheer scale of investment required. Carney's government must balance economic ambition with commitments to reconciliation and sustainability. Success depends on building consensus at home as much as building new infrastructure. For decades, Canada's prosperity was tied to the U.S. Now it's charting a new course. The stakes are high, but so is the resolve to control its own economic destiny. The world is watching to see if Canada can pull off this transformation. Carney walks a tightrope, projecting strength against U.S. tariffs while protecting Canadian jobs and consumers. Retaliatory tariffs show resolve, but a full-blown trade war could devastate both economies. The government carefully eases some tariffs to shield households while holding firm on key industries. Every move is a calculated risk, balancing leverage with the need to avoid economic disaster. The stakes, hundreds of thousands of jobs in steel, aluminum and autos, and the survival of businesses deeply tied to U.S. markets. American companies too face higher costs and supply chain chaos. The longer the standoff, the more likely temporary disruptions become permanent shifts. Some Canadian firms look to Asia and Europe, accelerating the economic pivot. Others may not survive the upheaval. The future of North American trade hangs in the balance, with both nations facing hard choices. The US-Canada trade war threatens to unravel decades of economic integration and stability. Tariffs imposed on national security grounds undermine the USMCA and could trigger a contentious renegotiation. Canada, once a steadfast ally, is now forced to seek new partners and assert its independence. Carney's coalition-building and nation-building projects signal a shift from reliance to resilience. The seamless flow of goods and trust that define North America is at risk of permanent rupture. The consequences go beyond economics, affecting security and diplomacy. Key questions remain. Can Carney and Trump find common ground? Will Canadian pressure change U.S. policy? Can Canada truly diversify? The world watches as the future of the continent's partnership hangs by a thread. The outcome will shape not just North America, but the global order for years to come.